Festival season is almost upon us, and while that may conjure up images of flower crowns and flowy skirts, there's so much that goes into the experience of attending a music festival in addition to the outfits. Music festivals go way back, like centuries back, and they've long been a place for artists and creatives to come together and showcase their talents in a collective space. I mean, where else can you listen to Kendrick Lamar and Ellie Goulding perform in the same afternoon? I wanted to dedicate today's episode to music festivals, which deeply shaped my life in the 2010s. We'll talk a little bit about the origins of music festivals. I'll share some of my personal experiences attending music festivals, some of the pros and cons that these events present, of course, the fashion and beauty, and of course, the impact that influencers and brands have had on these events. So sit back, grab a Land Shark beer, and let's talk festivals. Before we talk all things music festivals, first let's do create and consume. This is where I share what I have been creating and consuming in the past week, and because you're a listener of this podcast, I assume that you are also constantly creating and consuming things, whether it's articles, videos, short form content, writing, Substacks, all of those different things. So be sure to let me know what you guys are creating and consuming as well. One thing that I was creating this past week was a reel to the audio that I guess isn't really trending anymore. I was a little late to this audio party, but I had it in my head saved because I wanted to create a reel for the 5-year anniversary of us moving to Hoboken, which happened this past week. I can't believe we've been here for 5 years already. We moved here from New York City, from Queens, and we've honestly never looked back. So I saved the trending audio that goes Fall in Love Again and Again. It's from one of Charlie XCX's songs, and someone kind of made it into their own sound. And to make this reel, it's a really short reel, like it looks very low effort, but it actually took me a very long time to go back through the last 5 years of video content captured in my camera roll, which took me forever to do, and to pull out specifically the videos taken in Hoboken with people that I love. And it really is a cool montage effect to kind of look back on the last few years of my life. I mean, I got engaged while living here. I got married while living here. My best friend got engaged and married while living here. We bought our first apartment here. I have met so many amazing local content creators, and I've chatted with so many business owners, and it really does feel like home, and it really does feel like a true community. So to create this little ode to Hoboken was really fun. If you guys want to learn more about Hoboken, I did do a whole episode for best things to do in Hoboken. I want to say last year, but I'll link that episode in the show notes, and I'll also link this reel that I'm telling you about in the show notes if you'd like to go check it out. Okay, what I'm consuming this week. I just watched this last night. So if you have not seen the season finale of Paradise Season 2, I will put a timestamp down below, but definitely skip ahead so you don't get spoiled. Okay, holy shit, you guys. I will be thinking about this show, I think, for a very long time to come. And I think that's how you know that a show really has a deep impact on your life. So last night was the season 2 finale. I feel as though I actually now have even more questions. We got a couple of answers, but I have even more questions. I need to know if Annie is somehow still alive, if Sinatra is somehow still alive. Clearly Jane is still alive. Where did that little psycho go? The empty shower actually sent me over the edge. I was like, Dr. Tarabi, you didn't do what you think you did. Or did she do what we think she did in a different timeline? I'm so confused, but in a good way. Sterling K. Brown, I want him to win all the awards if he has not already won them. Like, he is just so good at what he does. Every little detail of this whole episode, like Jeremy going back to help Nicole, Link pointing the gun at Sinatra, and then Xavier telling him about the baby. I am just shaking. And the best tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that I've seen on Threads so far is that the Xavier that appears at the end of the episode is not the Xavier that we saw running through the gates of the bunker, because we didn't actually see him exit the bunker. So it's possible that he already did what Sinatra told him to do in a different timeline somehow. I don't know. I have so many questions. Please, if you've watched Paradise, feel free to DM me either on my personal Instagram, just at Austen Tosone, or the podcast account. I would love to talk to you guys about this. Okay, so let us talk now all about music festivals. I've had this episode on my idea list for a really long time, and this feels like the best time to do it because Coachella is starting in just a few weeks if you're listening to this episode the day it comes out. And this year's event has a lot of hype attached to it, and for a good reason. Now, the very first music festival, I was trying to think back in music history, and obviously, most impactful, I think the award for that goes to Woodstock, no doubt. That was 1969. However, the first known music festival on record literally took place in ancient Greece. I don't know why I was so surprised to read that, but this has been a concept that has existed for centuries. And I think in the last 50 years, though, it has just become such a cool place and like such a unique experience for people to come together and see a lot of different artists all at once, typically united by like some common theme or concept. And I think what happened in the 60s that really culminated with Woodstock in 1969 was the beginning of these more pop, if you want to call them that, style music festivals that were not just about music, but also really represented youth culture and gave people a collective place to come together and experience the art of their time together. And I think that is such a forgotten art in when you think about like the present day, honestly. When was the last time you and a bunch of your friends went to a museum to like appreciate the collective art together? I feel like it can manifest itself in a couple of different ways, obviously, but the idea of doing it for music and concerts feels kind of just like a natural fit. For the record, I would love to like go on a gallery crawl with my friends. Woodstock took place in upstate New York. I actually stopped by the site of Woodstock last year when my friend Devin and I went up to the Catskills, and it was really cool to see. And then Lollapalooza emerged with grunge music in 1991. The first ever Warped Tour, if that takes any of you back, took place in 1995. And then the very first Coachella was held in 1999. And I feel like those three, like Lollapalooza, Warped, and then Coachella, kind of set the tone for what music festivals have looked like over the last 25 years. Because when we look back at like the early aughts and the 2010s, I feel like there was kind of an established format by that point of what you could expect from a music festival. Typically, festivals selling either one day general admission passes, multi day general admission passes, and then having certain other like VIP upgrades, the choice to camp or not to camp. There are certain festivals where you like physically can't actually camp out. And there are some people who say that it's not a true music festival experience if you don't camp out, because some festivals take place like truly in the heart of the cities that they're in. For example, Lollapalooza takes place right in the heart of Chicago. Life is Beautiful, Las Vegas, same thing. And then there are music festivals like Burning Man, which I'm not gonna lie, scares me personally. I don't think I would do well at Burning Man, which takes place in Nevada's desert, and then Coachella, which takes place in Indio, California. So, what are some of the benefits of music festivals or the reasons why someone might want to attend a music festival? I think the first thing that I already alluded to a little bit is seeing a collective group of artists together and that are kind of united by some kind of theme or concept for whatever the music festival is. Because this is what I loved about attending music festivals in my like kind of core festival era, which I would probably say was between like 2013 and 2017. I got to see so many different artists who I probably had listened to a couple of their songs here and there, but I maybe would not have thought to go to their one and only concert that they were doing if they came to New York or maybe New Jersey, one of the venues here. And so it really gave me a chance to get to see and experience a lot of bands that I loved like in passing in person. And I loved being able to take that experience really offline, like to go from Spotify to being on stage for bands that, again, maybe I heard one or two songs of theirs. Obviously, with streaming, it's really hard to sit down and listen to a whole album all the way through these days. So that is one huge benefit, to get to see a bunch of different artists all across the board doing their own thing. And another huge benefit, I would say, is the cost. And I mean, there's so much to say about this, especially given what's happened with concert ticket prices in the last few years, the way that dynamic pricing has been incorporated, the fact that bots are now like very actively buying up a lot of tickets, the verified fan process on Ticketmaster. It's just gotten really, really expensive to go see live music. And I know that this is maybe not the best comparison, but I did just want to share. I looked up what my ticket was for the last music festival that I attended, which was 4 days. It was Firefly Music Festival. RIP, they're not doing Firefly anymore. Firefly is definitely the music festival that I've attended the most, and the last year that I went was 2015. So keep in mind, this is from 10 years ago, but the last year that I went to Firefly, and that was for 4 days general admission. So that was like, there were shows, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with the option to leave Monday morning or Sunday night from like the campsite. Oh yes, I camped. We will circle back to that. 4 days general admission with my camping pass was $499.21. And the number of artists that I saw, the amount of fun that I had, it should have been illegal. Like, are you kidding me? I was looking at tickets for like Gracie Abrams, who again is an artist that I really like everything I've heard of her music. I don't have all her songs memorized or anything, but I thought, oh, that would be a fun show to go to, like if she's in New York. A ticket to her show that was like a terrible seat was $500. And obviously, I want artists to get paid for their work. I mean, I have to assume touring is one of the main ways that artists even make money now, thanks to streaming. But $500 for someone who I'm like, yeah, I like a couple of her songs, that's the math is not mathing for me. Like, I'm just gonna not go to that concert, which is sad because I love going to concerts. I try to go to at least like 2 a year. And it would be more if it were not for how expensive and insane it's been lately. So when I think about that, $500, so that's like $100 a day to see all of these different artists who are performing. And they had performances from, I want to say like noon to midnight most days. Not that you would necessarily be going to every single performance. And in fact, you kind of can't. Like, I could talk a little bit more later about how to break up your schedule for the day. But the value is really, really good. I just at the base, like if we're talking about the ticket price here, and again, Firefly is no longer operating, so I can't give you like a comparison for today as far as what the cost of general admission is. But even if it's like $1,000, say, even if the price has doubled, I paid more than $1,000 to go to the Era store, which is crazy. I mean, it is crazy. I also did it in Amsterdam, and the fact that I couldn't get tickets for under $1,000 in the States is also crazy. And look, you're allowed to think it's crazy to spend over $1,000 on concert tickets, and that's understandable. For me, as someone who literally was like walking around my middle school singing Teardrops on My Guitar by Taylor Swift, I'm a lifelong fan. If I'm going to pay any kind of crazy money to go to any show, it's going to be hers. But also think about like $1,000 to go see so many different artists. Like even if you just saw 10, that's $100 a show and you get to see them all in one weekend. Granted, it's helpful to keep in mind that most bands are probably doing more like a half hour to 45-minute set at a music festival compared to if you went to their singular concert and you got to hear like more of their discography, maybe an hour to 2 hours of performance. But that's still pretty good, especially if for a lot of bands, you know a couple of their top songs. Those are probably going to be the ones that they will play at a music festival. Okay, so those are the two big benefits for sure of going to a music festival is how many artists you get to see all at once and also the cost. Let's talk about some of the cons of music festivals. First, I'm just going to say this. If you don't like crowds, even the VIP experiences these days are getting more and more crowded. So I would say that it's not really like an intimate concert experience because usually you're out in an open field with thousands of other people all watching the same artist that you are. So it's not like going to see, I'm trying to think of more of an intimate venue in the city. Baby's All Right in Williamsburg. Love Baby's All Right, but it is like the opposite of going to a show there. You know, depending on which section you're in, if you are general admission, if you didn't get all the way to the front right before the show started, you might be kind of far back while you're watching the show. It's just like a crowded, chaotic experience, at least from what I've experienced. Okay, another big con of music festivals is just general weather and environment, I would say. So weather, just keep in mind that especially in the desert, like at Burning Man or at Coachella, those shows are happening basically just out in the open. There's very rarely any shade or any relief from the heat. Some festivals will say that concerts can happen rain or shine, so that might also mean that you're standing outside in the pouring rain, getting soaked while someone plays. And in some other cases, the weather can actually become dangerous, and that can be a little scary, especially if you're camping. So I can't remember if it was 2014 or 2015 Firefly that I was at, but one year, Kings of Leon was supposed to be one of the headliners, and their show actually got canceled, and they advised all of us to go back to our campsites and to not sleep in our tents because there was a lightning risk, but to actually like sleep in our cars that night, which is what my friends and I did. So that's obviously like a worst case scenario, is that something gets canceled beyond your control and then you have to like sleep in your car for the night. Not my favorite night ever by any means. Also, in a lot of these desert environments and large fields, this is something that no one actually talks about, for Coachella especially, I would say. Think of all the dust. All of the dust. It's actually crazy to remember to think back on how dusty all of my outfits were after attending music festivals, because when you're out on these large open fields, it just gets kicked up everywhere. And also, depending on what time of year it is, your location, and all of that, bugs. I got eaten alive at a couple of music festivals too, and I feel like no one talks about packing bug spray. I want to see real Pack With Me for Coachella videos this year, okay? I want to see like the blister tape. I want to see the stain removers. I want to see the bug spray. Like, don't just show me the outfits. Show me what's actually going to help you survive. And I also have a couple of more things for a packing list that I'll talk about later in this episode. If you're not super familiar with the music festival scene, I did go ahead and write down some of what I think are like the most noteworthy festivals, or the ones that I have heard about over the years, either that I have attended or I've heard friends have attended and liked. Okay, so obviously number one is Coachella, and that usually like kicks off festival season, I would say. Another one is Stagecoach, which actually takes place in the same location that Coachella does, just a week after. Gov Ball, that is really New York City's main festival. You know, a couple of years ago, we had one called the Meadows that I actually completely forgot about until right now, that was held at Citi Field, of all places, which is the Mets Stadium in Queens. That is so crazy. I do have a story I'm adding to my outline right now to tell you about the Meadows. Oh my God, I forgot all about that. I'm even more qualified to talk about this than I initially thought. Okay, Life is Beautiful in Las Vegas, Burning Man in Nevada, Bonnaroo in Tennessee, Outside Lands, I want to say that's Southern California, if memory serves. I had a friend from college who talked all about Outside Lands, so much so to the point that I was like, one day I must go. Never did, but she definitely hyped it up. And then two international festivals that have always kind of been on my radar as well. One is Osheaga in Montreal. Again, I had a friend from the area who moved here for school who was telling me about it and how it's like her favorite festival ever. Also, Stampede in Calgary. I feel like that is very well known across the board. My friend Tanisha has gone in the past. And then Glastonbury in London. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list by any means. These are kind of just the first ones that came to mind when I was even brainstorming for this episode. Now I'll share some of my music festival experiences over the years. My favorite and most attended festival was always Firefly in Dover, Delaware. That was perfect because it wasn't actually that far to drive to, but it always felt like going to a different planet. And like I said, I attended for 3 years there, and I wrote down a couple of the artists that I was able to see. Ellie Goulding, Kendrick Lamar, Tom Petty, Cage the Elephant, Foster the People, Vampire Weekend, and that's just from the 2013 lineup. I didn't even bother to look at the other ones because I was like, that's already a lot. Again, for a band like Foster the People, that is one of those where maybe I wouldn't have actually gone to their concert, but the fact that they were performing on the lineup, I was like, oh my God, Foster the People, Pumped Up Kicks, Helena Beat, like so many songs that take me right back to college, like little time machine in my brain that brings me back to studying for an art history exam and like blasting that song while I'm reading through everything. Actually iconic. And one thing that actually worked out really well during my festival obsession was that was during all of the years that I worked at Free People. So that meant that I was shopping Free People for my music festival outfits. Have you ever heard of something that so perfectly encapsulates the 2010s in your life? And if you don't know, I worked at the Free People store in Rockefeller Center for 3 years while I was in college. I actually have a whole episode where I talk about what working in retail taught me about fashion. I can link that episode in the show notes if you want to hear more about my time working at Free People. But how perfect is that timing? That was when I was working at Free People, so I basically tried to get all of my festival outfits from there. And this took a lot of convincing for my parents to even like let me go to Firefly in the first place, but I have to say, compared to hearing stories from friends about other music festivals, Firefly was pretty like family friendly and safe, I would say overall. I want to say I was 18, 19, and 20 the years that I attended. And Firefly Festival usually happened in late June. And I remember the last year that I was there that I camped out. My friends and I were next to some first time parents who were actually like, this was their first trip away from their baby, who I want to say was maybe like a month old at the time. And like the grandparents offered to watch the baby. The parents had these tickets to the festival and still wanted to go. And on the last day, Sunday, was Father's Day. And they were like, we're leaving early. We miss our baby. And we were like, oh my God, you guys are so cute. Like, those were the kind of people that attended Firefly. Truly, like, never got approached like, hey, you want to do some drugs? Like, never felt unsafe at all. Like, that was a very, very nice experience that I got to have. And I'm grateful that I get to look back and have nothing but good things to say about all the times that I attended. So the first year I went with my friend Kat, and we did stay in a hotel at my parents' request. So I did not camp out the first year, but I did camp out the next 2 years and settle a debate between me and Andrew, you guys, because Andrew thinks this does not count as real camping because it was on the festival grounds. And obviously I was camping with lots of other people, like, side by side, literally our cars and our tents were all lined up next to each other. I'm sorry. I think if I am sleeping outside in a tent, which I did for 3 nights in 2014 and 2015 at this festival, I think that's camping. I do. I did try to bring an air mattress one year that, of course, did not inflate, so that was a fail. And obviously, I paid to use like the trailer showers every day because I could not believe how filthy and disgusting and dirty I felt. Also, how many bugs found their way into my tent every night, but I did it. So, yes, the first year that I went with my friend Kat, we did stay in a hotel. The second year, I went with my friend Jake, who's one of my best friends from high school, and we camped, and that was interesting. And then the last year, a friend of mine from summer camp growing up wanted to go with her 2 friends. So the 4 of us, I believe we took my car actually, like got in the car and drove down all together. And I will say, the last year going with that group was actually probably not the right move in retrospect. The main reason being me and then the 3 of them all had completely different priorities of what music we wanted to see throughout the day. Basically, a lot of shows at music festivals tend to overlap. So as a group, we were trying to figure out collectively what we wanted to go see together. And I was like, oh, I want to go to this band. And they were like, no, we want to go to this band. But another cool thing about Firefly is that all 3 years that I was there, my cousin Brian and a bunch of his friends were also at the festival. So in the previous years, I had always made points to like meet up with them at some point. And because I was always just with one friend, either Kat or Jake from the previous years, we would kind of meet up with them and it would turn into like one big group. So basically the last year I just ended up essentially like hanging out with my cousin's friends for the entire time. So even though like my car was there and my campsite was there and that's where I like slept at night, I basically spent the rest of the day with them and it was no hard feelings or anything. It was just like my music priorities are over here, your guys' priorities are over here. So that is actually something I would discuss before booking festivals with friends. Oh, okay. And then the year that I went with Jake, the 2014 year, guys, I was in my hustling era as a college student. I had this crazy idea that I wanted to go and shoot street style at Firefly for Teen Vogue. This is so me coded. Like this perfectly explains my personality in college. It's like I'm doing something fun over the summer, but how can I turn this into something that will advance my career in editorial or digital publishing? So I don't know how I found the email. I emailed someone at Teen Vogue and I said, hey, I'm going to Firefly. Would you like me to take street style photos for you guys? Didn't ask for payment, didn't ask for like anything really. And they emailed back and they said, sure. And I was like, okay, great. So now I'm a photographer. Which is actually funny because I am so not a photographer. It's actually comical. Like, I struggle all the time to self shoot when I have to like create my own content. And I would always prefer to outsource and work with a professional who knows what they're doing. I think this article might still be live. If it is, I will link it in the show notes so you guys can see my photography in action. But what was cool about that was I did have a press pass. So I had access to like the press tent. I had access to like private locked phone chargers so my phone could charge for a little bit like during the day. I had access to the better bathrooms, like not outhouses, but like the trailer bathrooms that were air conditioned. That was the life, honestly. Being press is, I still just think it's like one of the coolest things. Again, they didn't pay for my ticket. They didn't pay me for the article. I just like popped in and offered to do it for them. And then of course, like I get back from the festival so exhausted, and first thing Monday morning, they're like, "Where are the photos?" And I'm like, "Listen, they're coming." But overall, I always just had so much fun at Firefly, so many positive experiences. I also definitely have some blog posts of either like photo diaries, or I might even have a packing list from one year that I did Firefly. So I will link all relevant posts in the show notes for you guys. That's the beauty of having documented your life online for over a decade, is I'm like, "Oh, you want my packing list from Firefly 2013? Like, got you. It's linked down below." Next festival experience that I have to tell you about is Gov Ball, which is New York City's music festival. Obviously figured I would end up there at some point, but here's the catch with my Gov Ball experience. Basically, I ended up only going for one night and one specific show. I want to say this was summer 2015, if I'm remembering correctly. It must have been, because I was living on campus over the summer because I was interning, and my roommate Heather, who was my roommate all throughout my time at Barnard, we were rooming together that summer, and she had actually bought like a wristband to go to Gov Ball. So she had been going for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday shows. So I remember she came back like Sunday afternoon, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you're back." And she's like, "Yeah, honestly, like I've been at shows the last 3 days. I'm exhausted. So I just decided to come home." And me being, how do I put this, obsessed at the time, I would say, with Lana Del Rey, I was like, "Isn't Lana Del Rey like the Sunday night headliner though?" I was like, "You're not going to go to her show." And my sweet roommate, Heather, she took her wristband off of her wrist and she slid it onto my wrist and she said, "You should go." I said, "Okay." And I went. Now, I will say, one of my biggest gripes with festivals is always the logistics, because it's never straightforward to get in and out of these venues, and GovBall is no exception to that rule. So, how do you get to Governor's Island in New York? Have you ever even heard of Governor's Island if you're not from the area? Probably not. Let me tell you. You have to either take a ferry or basically walk over a pedestrian bridge on 125th Street, and there's really no cars on the island. So this is not like an Ubering situation, especially the night of a festival. Like, there's just no way that it would work. So going there, I ended up going to Midtown and taking the Governor's Island ferry, which took me directly to where I needed to go for the festival grounds. It's very walkable once you're there. And the funny thing is, because I was living on Barnard's campus that summer, I actually walked all the way home. So I walked from Governor's Island over the pedestrian bridge to 125th Street, which dropped me in East Harlem. And then I basically just kept walking horizontally. Like, I just kept walking west until I reached my dorm on 116th and Broadway. Got a lot of steps in that day. So I got there, I got like a little festival snack. I got there just at sunset and in time to see Lana Del Rey perform all of the songs that shaped me at that time. I honestly, like, I didn't expect to feel so much joy talking about this episode, but it really is just bringing me back to like those really joyful moments in time, and the feeling of being in college and living in New York, just like running around. That was the perfect example of just like anything could happen at any time. And you got to be willing and open to accept those opportunities. And we talked about that a lot in an episode from 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point called How to Make Your Own Luck. I'll link that one in the show notes, but this is just bringing me truly so much joy talking about all of this. She played video games, she played Summertime Sadness, she just played all of these incredible songs, and it was so cool to get to go experience that and to experience it for free. So again, I really didn't get the full Gov Ball experience, but in some ways that kind of is the Gov Ball experience, because you pop in for the day and then you pop back out. There's no camping on Governor's Island, so that's not an option. And obviously, now, as someone who's in their 30s, if I were to ever do a music festival again in my life, I would not want to camp. I've paid my dues. And then I will also quickly tell you about the Meadows, which I only went to 1 year as well. This is a music festival that was in Queens by Citi Field. And that neighborhood in Queens is called Flushing. And I think there's also a part called Flushing Meadows, hence the name The Meadows. So yeah, went to the Meadows. I believe we just went for 1 day though. I don't even remember if there were 2 days or if it was just a 1 day thing. I went with a couple of girls from college, including Nora, who's one of my close friends. And we just had so much fun. I remember I got to see Cage the Elephant again. I had seen them at Firefly. But the real story from that night is the headliner of that show was actually Kanye, or I guess the artist formerly known as Kanye. I am happy to say I don't know a single thing about what that person is up to these days. But he was the closing act. So naturally, that's the big thing. Everyone's waiting to see him go on. And he comes on for maybe like 2 songs or something. And we're all in the crowd. And then he runs off the stage and he's like, family emergency, family emergency. And he runs off the stage, and then that was it. So everyone's now mass exiting, trying to get back to the 7 train, because it's okay, well, I guess that's it. And we were all speculating. We are like, oh gosh, hope everything's okay. That's weird and too bad. That was the night that Kim Kardashian got robbed at her hotel in Paris. And I guess he went to go to Paris to be with her. But is that not the strangest possible concert experience that you could think of? Anyway, so those were my music festival experiences. 2 in New York, 1 in Delaware that I went to for 3 years. Fun times all around. And next up, I did create a little section in my outline with some general tips if you are attending a festival for the first time. I would say that if you are attending a music festival with a group, I don't know if this was more a thing back in the 2010s, but maybe it's still relevant today. I would honestly pick a group meeting spot and a group meeting time for your group if you are going to split up at all. This is what I did with my friends the last year that I went, because we ended up having such different schedules. We basically agreed okay, at 9:30 p.m. we will meet at the hot dog stand and we'll all walk back to the car together. And the reason we did that is because cell service was extremely spotty. And I think that's the case, when you're managing a lot of different phones that are all trying to connect and communicate at the same time together. Honestly, at festivals, I found it helpful to have my phone on airplane mode for the most part, so that I could focus on capturing content on my phone if I wanted to, and also so that I could save my phone battery. And on that note, another tip is to bring a backup phone charger. Even if you don't need it, a friend might, especially if you are out in the desert somewhere and you want to have access to your phone. This kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier, but basically prioritize who you want to see in the lineup. So once the schedule is actually released, so the lineup is the big poster that says who's headlining and which artists are going to be performing. But once you get the actual schedule for the day, try to prioritize who you actually want to see. Because if the artists you want to see are mostly performing from noon to 7 p.m., then you could go back, have an early night. If the person who you desperately want to see goes on at 11 p.m., you might not want to be at the festival grounds for 12 hours, just to arrive there early in the day for acts that you don't care as much about, when you could be saving your energy for later in the day. I just think that conserving your energy and knowing who you want to see the most will help you to have the best possible experience. Also, I would say look up everything in advance just as much as possible. What time does the last shuttle leave? When do things open? How many food options are there, especially if you have food restrictions? What kind of bag can you bring into the festival? Is it clear bags only? Can you bring a fanny pack? Can you bring a backpack? Just look up all of those things so that you don't create problems for yourself and find yourself in a stressful situation when you actually arrive. And earlier in this episode, I was talking about the cost of a ticket. Obviously, when you buy the ticket, you know how much that is, but also think about what other additional expenses you might need to budget for when attending a festival. That could include anything from food to parking fees to Ubers, all of that. And I feel like for that, you could probably look on Reddit or in Facebook groups of festival people to see if anyone has been able to share previous cost breakdowns, just to get an idea. You guys know I love fashion and beauty. I mean, that is really the bread and butter of what really started my content creation journey in the first place. So let's talk about festival fashion and beauty. Things can definitely vary a little bit depending on location, vibe, what genre of music the festival is centered on. But in general, I would say that most people attending festivals lean casual and also lean a little bit boho. And I miss when boho style was mainstream. I think that's pretty evident given how nostalgic I've been throughout this whole episode, talking about like my Free People era and thinking about like running around at Firefly and all the flower crowns and outfits and things. This is your chance to like live out your boho fantasies again. And if I could give one big fashion tip, it would be to choose comfort when in doubt. Not to say that you can't be cute, but if you're between two options and one of them is more comfortable, pick that option. Especially when it comes to footwear. I can't tell you how important it is to either just pick your most loved, most well worn pair of boots or sneakers and just wear those. If you try to wear anything new, anything remotely fancy, anything made of like cheap leathers that's going to rub up against you, I promise you will regret it. Unless you're going to the grounds for like less than 4 hours somehow, but you really are just on your feet the whole time. So if you're going to be there all day, truly, like, I would just say sneakers. And then I made a little mini beauty packing list / survival kit. Here's what I would pack on the beauty front. Number one, SPF. You are going to get burned. Like, even if you think you're not, you probably will. Body wipes, very crucial, especially if you are out all day. Like, just trust me when I say this. Even if you're staying in a nice hotel, even if you're not camping, but especially if you are camping, bring a big thing of body wipes. I think you can have a lot of fun with makeup for festival season, but I will say picking a foundation or base that will not sweat off of your face is my biggest tip. And then from there, like glitter eyeshadow, little rhinestones, anything you want to do to glam it up, I feel like you can add after, but just having kind of like that sweat-proof base intact is going to make everything else look even better. I would also personally pack a deodorant and an extra deodorant, just in case. I would also pack the Mega Babe thigh stick to prevent thigh chafing. Like, that has saved my life many a time in the summer. I do love the little mini plastic hair elastics that are see-through. Oh, wow, that just rhymed. That's funny. And I feel like you could just throw a ton of those into a bag and use them for different fun hairstyles and stuff. Also, a slick back stick. I mean, you're going to want your hair off your face. I aspire to be the kind of person who could attend a music festival with like a big wavy blowout, but like in reality, my hair is going in a braid, my hair is going in a slick back. I just want it off of my face, especially if I'm out sweating watching all of my favorite artists. I can also link everything I just mentioned in the show notes. And then, of course, I feel like this would not be a true create and consume episode if we did not talk about the impact of influencers and brands at Coachella and other assorted music festivals, but mostly Coachella, I feel like. That has really become the festival of SpawnCon. And there's honestly a lot of different ways that brands work with creators for Coachella. I have seen lots of creators attend festivals like Coachella over the years with brands, and the scope of how much they are actually like sponsoring the trip can really vary. For example, some brands may offer to cover the cost of literally everything for a creator to attend Coachella. So that would include their flights in, their ground transportation, once they're in Indio from whatever lodging or hotel they're staying at to the festival grounds, the cost of the tickets, the cost of food. It could be an all-inclusive situation, but I feel like it very rarely actually is. I feel like it's more likely that a brand will offer to pay either for your flight or your accommodations or your festival pass, but maybe not all three. And I mean, one reason for this is because that's expensive. Like, Coachella specifically is probably the most expensive festival because I feel like it is the one that is most in the spotlight. And also, another thing that I think is interesting is some people will be going to Coachella. I'm using air quotes if you're watching this episode on YouTube, with a brand, and they will just attend that brand's like party or whatever activation they're doing in Indio without actually ever going to the festival itself. So I'm always interested to see who actually ends up inside the festival and who's actually like watching the music that is being presented. And some brands just want to activate with a party because they know a lot of people are attending, and maybe they're attending and they already bought their own passes outside of the brand thing. I feel like another good comparison for that is actually the Super Bowl, because I feel like a lot of people attend Super Bowl parties if they are in the city where the Super Bowl is being hosted for the weekend, but may not actually go to the game. So I think that actually is maybe a helpful mirror to hold up to those two events. So you might see an influencer attend an event with a brand and be like, wait, I didn't see them post anything from the concerts. Probably because they didn't go in, probably because they weren't actually there for that. And then I'm always interested to see too which brands do the kind of house or villa setup where they will invite a bunch of creators to attend Coachella and put them all up in the same lodging, essentially. I think that is obviously the most expensive option, whereas other brands may just fly in a creator and put them up in a nearby hotel and maybe hook them up with transportation, but don't actually make it a whole big thing with multiple moving parts and multiple talent in one place, if that makes sense. I will also link Amanda Pulatano, who is a local Hoboken creator, went to Coachella last year, and I really liked her Coachella vlog. I feel like she actually had a pretty well-rounded view of what it was actually like to go to Coachella. So I'm going to link her vlog in the show notes if you guys want to see like a real world example of what type of content might get created for a creator who gets to attend Coachella on behalf of a brand. A couple of festivals that I will be paying special attention to this year in 2026. Number one is definitely Coachella in April. And the big reason for that is because Justin Bieber is one of the headliners. This is an extremely huge deal. People are freaking out. They're calling it Bieberchella. And a lot of creators who I follow have shared that they're going and are specifically excited to see him perform in his set. So I think you'll be seeing a lot of that content flooding your feeds in the next few weeks. Also, Stagecoach in late April. That is primarily a country music festival. So the headliners this year are Post Malone, Lainey Wilson, and Cody Johnson. It is interesting though, because I feel like Stagecoach also just has caught the appeal of influencers in general. I've seen just as many creators going to Stagecoach as I have Coachella in the last few years. And I think it's because of that they're also introducing some other genres. I mean, I saw that Diplo and Pitbull are set to perform at Stagecoach this year. On paper, that didn't quite make sense to me, but I think if they're trying to appeal to even a larger crowd, they might dip their toes outside of the country bubble. Okay, and there's one called See Here Now, See spelled SEA, because it's in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is down the shore. And this is a newer music festival. It looks like it started in 2018 and has only been going on the last couple of years. This is actually my first time hearing of it, but the lineup for this year, like, looks really good. I'm like, should I go to this? I mean, The Strokes, Mumford and Sons, the Goo Goo Dolls, and it's local, like it's in New Jersey. It sounds really interesting. I'm curious if any like New York City creators will go to that, or if I'll just see more so like my local friends and family from New Jersey in attendance. That's not till later this year in September, but that's one of the few festivals that actually already released the lineups. So Govball and Lollapalooza are still in the process of finalizing their lineups, but I would also keep an eye on those. So I will be interested to see just what is in store for the future of music festivals, especially after this slight Coachella renaissance. I think a lot of people are going this year who maybe used to go in like 2017, 2018, who haven't been in a while because of Justin Bieber. I also am curious to see if we see more people attending music festivals, just given how high the cost of an individual concert ticket is, if it is easier for people to justify, hey, if I'm going to pay a lot of money to go see live music, at least I would love to go see, 10 or 15 artists that I'm excited about all in one weekend versus just paying an exorbitant amount of money for a single concert. And obviously, I am excited to see what people post on social media. I'm excited to see what festival fashion looks like in 2026. And, I've long joked about going to somewhere in the desert in like early February and shooting a bunch of festival style outfits early and then just posting them in April to see if I could fool anyone, to see if anyone would think I'm actually at Coachella. And honestly, if you're a content creator and you're listening to this, I would still totally take advantage of the fact that festival season is happening now. You could easily do a video shot at home where you style like what I would wear to Coachella, Stagecoach, etc. Get those affiliate link clicks even if you're not actually going to the festival, And I was thinking about whether or not I would want to attend a music festival at the ripe age of 31 in my future. And I think the answer is still yes. I feel like I could still go and have fun and do things. And even though I won't have as much energy as I did when I was like 18 running around in Delaware, I still think that it could be fun. So I did write down my little festival bucket list. I, again, feel like Osheaga in Montreal would actually be a really cool experience. And I feel like the lineups in the past have aligned with like my music taste. I also think Lollapalooza would be fun in Chicago. And again, I like that because that is a very city centric festival. And then I would still say Coachella is like a bucket list thing. I had looked into going to Coachella many a time in my early 20s, and it always just worked out to be too expensive. But maybe one day I'll be an influencer going to Coachella with a brand. So I guess you'll have to stay tuned, follow along, and see what happens with that. Thank you guys so much for joining me for today's episode. I hope you had a lot of fun listening, and I'll talk to you all again next week.